Introduction. The Vega Food Company is a family business that is built upon values that are vaguely conceptual and limited to certain members of the family. As represented in the case, the Valle family had a message that was built by Francisco Valle Sr. in his early foundation of the organization, which carried wealth and nurtured the family. However, after his death in 1994, the true image of the lack of transparency among the family members and the organization became vividly apparent. Francisco Jr. has been working there the longest and has the most experience working alongside his dad in the company. About the family. The business was a Spanish production-oriented group that produced meat for local and export markets such as hams, sausages, and the others were the main products of the company. The company generated $104.8 million per year. Francisco Jr. had 4 sisters who now wanted a higher percentage of shares in the family business. Francisco received a big CEO salary and bonus that the sisters didn't receive nearly as much as he did. They thought this was unfair. This problem seemed to hurt the company in sales. About the company. Mary, the youngest daughter, wanted out of the company for feeling that she wasn't treated the same way as the rest of the siblings. Mary believed that Francisco was more invested in his governmental position in the city than he was in the company. She was not trustful of her brother. Francisco sponsored the first family meeting addressing issues due to his father's passing. The main issues on the agenda were lack of clarity and organization ownership, lack of well-organized family forums. Conclusion of the company. Since management was now in Francisco Jr.'s hands, he realized he had a board of directors that were mainly composed of outsiders. Francisco came back to his senses and he had developed a strong management system in the company. He fired members of the board that were hindering the success of the family and hired competent executives that increased the net profits of the company. Francisco involved theory in the company to reduce the transparency and make it possible for the family to be more involved in decision-making process and the succession plan of future generations.
The systems theory model is a central organizing framework for understanding family business systems used by families, consultants, and academics worldwide. This framework clarifies in simple terms the 3 interdependent and overlapping groups that comprise the family business system: family, business, and ownership. As a result of this overlap, there are 7 interest groups present, each with its own legitimate perspectives, goals, and dynamics. The long-term success of family business systems depend on the functioning and mutual support of each of these groups. Firstly, family first business emphasizes the needs of the family over what is best for the business. In this group, employment is a birthright, members of the same generation are paid equally, and commitment to continuity depends on the agendas of individual family members. Secondly, management first business have a clear set of boundaries between family issues and business, where employment is based on qualifications, compensation is based on responsibility and performance, and conversation between family members is usually all business. Lastly, ownership first is based on another set of rules where investment time horizons and perceived risk are the most significant issues, and there are shorter time frames within which financial results are evaluated. It was clear that Francisco took the management first approach in running his family business, where he made the business his priority. He took the initiative in sponsoring the first family council meeting to clarify the rising issues. Additionally, he also fired several members of the team who were hurt in his efforts to professionalize the business, replacing them with competent key managers. As a result, he began to successfully execute a growth strategy where the organization revenues and net profits increased. Francisco did encounter issues due to overlap where Marie has ownership stake owning 15% of the non-voting dividend-bearing B shares but is not involved in management. Francisco, on the other hand, has ownership stake owning 50% of the voting A shares and 20% of the B shares, and he is involved in management where he serves as the president. Since Francisco was more focused on his political endeavors, Marie was concerned about his high dividend payout for his lack of effort in the company.
Discussing question number 2, which states, does Industrias La Vega benefit from operating as a family firm? And if it does, what unique resources does the company have to maintain their competitive advantage? So in answering this question, we first need to look at the resource-based theory of family businesses and how it relates to competitive advantage. The definition I got was from Havisham and Williams, and they described the perspective as one that provides a theoretical framework from the field of strategic management for assessing the competitive advantages of family firms. The resource-based view isolates idiosyncratic resources that are complex, intangible, and dynamic within a particular firm. The bundled resources that are distinctive to a firm as a result of family involvement are identified as the familyness of the firm. Okay, now despite all the conflict that is you see in the case that the Vale family experienced, especially during the preliminary years after Francisco Jr. inherited control of the business, the company really and truly still reaped benefits from operating as a family firm, right? I outline a table which breaks down the resources, the competencies, the competitive advantages, and the respective value that is created from these advantages. There are 2 resources that I was able to locate from within the case, and those are political resources and human resources. So we'll first deal with political. The competencies derived from their political resources. They have good relationship with governance, and because of Francisco Sr. Being elected into the governance within the country, and Francisco Jr. following him into politics after, they would have formed political allegiances, which also form a competency, right? And in the case, they stated that because of this business's relationship with the government, that they're not only seen in an industrial sense, but in a political sense as well. They get a lot of respect from the suppliers, right? So they were able to actually form stronger B2B relations with their suppliers because of that, and it built their reputation amongst the suppliers and on a whole. Okay, so the value I figured that created would have been trust, which is highlighted in the case, and influence, be it political, be it through that respect that they get from their suppliers and from their peers in business, right? The second key resource that is highlighted in the case is the human resource factor. Human resources, the fact that Francisco Jr. and his sister both occupy managerial positions within the firm, and Francisco Jr.'s experience, which has led him to now owning the firm, right, is given him in-depth business knowledge. And also you see throughout the case that there's a dedicated support from management level, right, investment into the firm, and you see that coming up a lot in the Vale family on a whole, right, that they more or less collectively want this firm to do well, and they're interested in the firm. The competitive advantages drawn from these factors, there's knowledge transfer between generations. So you can see that apparent with between Francisco Sr. and Francisco Jr. and they already elected his successor, which would have been his sister, right? So you're seeing that transfer of knowledge between the generations, and there's also a long-term vision for the firm, and then this is because of ownership commitment, right? So they don't want this firm to be only for now. This is not a fly-by-night company. They want this to last. They want this to grow with their family, and you see that a lot with how they treated their conflict, because they wanted to sort it out, because they wanted the firm to be successful, right? And they also wanted to protect the family's interests, and within their interest, there's their reputation and their name that they also need to protect. Okay, and these are all competitive advantages, because that requires a level of commitment and a level of dedication that non-family firms may not have, right, or may not feel obligated to have. And well, of course, the value created from that will be quality of their products, because they have a level of pride in it, and they also have that knowledge behind it, and as well as they will also have a longer term of business, right? So they'll be enjoying longevity of the businesses because they have that level of dedication. And we also see brand strength and shareholder buy-in. So by the end of the case, a lot of the issues had been resolved, and they saw higher profitability, higher shareholder dividend payout, and so on. And all of that ties back in with buy-in and the strength of their brand as a family and their reputation. Okay, so on a whole, just conclusion, yes, they do definitely benefit from operating as a family firm, despite the conflicts that will arise because it's a family firm. They have unique resources, and which gives them a unique competitive advantage as a family firm versus a non-family firm. Thank you.
For us to properly understand how these problems could have been avoided, we must first identify some of the challenges that the family, and by extension their business, faced. One of the challenges was that Marie did not trust her brother Francisco. While Marie had trusted her late father, she did not trust her brother Francisco and him running the business. His decisions and actions were questioning. Secondly, Francisco neglected the business. Since Francisco won his father's Senate seat, he spent most of his days on political endeavors. His sisters wondered how he could be so effective when it came to politics, but still lacked the ability to instill team spirit among the company's employees. Thirdly, there was unequal treatment when it came to the financial returns. Francisco received salaries and bonuses and benefit packages. He had a luxurious lifestyle, a fancy home, car, boat, helicopter, you name it, while his sister's dividends were nowhere close to what he received. Even the sister who works in a management position received less percentage of company profits compared to what Francisco received. All these revelations only led to gossip. Then lastly, there was the lack of transparency. Marie believed as siblings they all needed to be involved in all the aspects of the business. Another sister, Terry, believed that financial information it was necessary and needed to be sent out regularly and explained for shareholders to understand. According to author Ernesto, firms can engage in joint optimization. This term refers to jointly optimize the interrelated subsystems, that is the family, management, and ownership, in such a way that the larger system can be most effective and successful in the pursuit of its goals. Simply put, with each system working in harmony, they create a balance. Francisco was a successor and he fell into each subsystem. He was part of the family, and he managed and owned the business. Yet, he took a business-like approach and was more invested in the business and its profitability. His sister's position in the family hierarchy was not even considered, as well as there were no family perks. In addition, he even neglected his own sister Marie, who was a shareholder. Indeed, if the subsystems were jointly optimized, these problems could have been avoided. I say so because simply having family forums, probably over a nice family dinner, each member could have stated how they felt instead of gossiping. Francisco could have possibly used this opportunity to clear the air as to their queries. His openness would have left no room for mistrust. Take for consideration strategic planning. In developing a strategic plan, it addresses the key issues. As mentioned, the family believed that Francisco was not a good leader and the company lacked team spirit. These are the issues that can hold back any company. Francisco needed to get to the core issues and, with the assistance of the others, implement strategies. Fair policies. If Francisco had taken the initiative at the start to properly investigate what each family member was entitled to and shared that same information with his sisters, he and they would have gained an understanding of what they were legally entitled to. After all, they felt as if they were a part of the family and they deserved as much as Francisco did. Then there's managerial practices. Yes, Francisco did adopt a management approach. However, improvement was needed in how he managed the business. If he considered the needs of his family and treated them as if they were a part of ownership, conflict would not have arisen. He neglected the fact that this was a family business and not a regular organization. All in all, if Francisco had used each system in harmony, he could have given the family business a competitive advantage.
So, to answer this question, we first need to understand what is the agency theory and what is agency costs, etc. So the agency theory is what outlines the relationship between principals and agents in a business. And the principal would usually be the owner, whereas the agents would be the ones who work for them, like managers. And agency costs arise when the agent and the principal goals or vision for the company don't exactly align. So it could be also due to the communication in between those channels. They might not communicate their goals or wants and needs for the business with each other, and then conflicts will arise because the outcomes may be different to what their vision actually was. The diagram below perfectly depicts the relationship between agent and principal. So in that relationship there will be goal orientation, obligation and reciprocity, risk and self-interest. Now usually if these things align, there would be congruency, and if not, there would be conflict. So within the same year that the changes were made, Francisco and the employees began to see a lot of changes within the company. So their profits and revenues increased significantly. The net profit rose to over 112 million and 6.2 million. And in the following year, when their revenues went down, they still had a net profit that rose to over 6 million. Their dividends also increased significantly, and Francisco gained more respect with the shareholders. Apart from this, once the new employees were recruited, the profitability of the company increased, and there was better alignment of goals between the principal and the agents. The family members, with the exception of one sister, recommitted themselves to the company and began working on a project to commemorate the late Francisco Jr. So all in all, the family and the company benefited from all the changes.
To conclude the finding of the case of the Vega Food Company in relation to family business theories, the following could have been clearly identified from our discussion. It was clear that the Val family was an unhealthy one, tainted by secrecy, lack of information, low levels of emotional intelligence, a lack of knowledge by most of the family members. These aspects created a sort of leadership system where Francisco Jr. took up the business-like approach whereby Marie saw him taking that role from her that she wanted. She wanted possession, leadership possession within the company, and this created a zero-sum dynamics by the family. Also, there was a lack of trust catalyst to act as a triangulation point for the family, but it hindered the development of the emotional intelligence of the family. This distrust between them created conflict amongst them. Also, a steady form of information sharing between the family and the organization. Communication barriers due to this distrust between one another. So, to close, you could see from our discussion, it could be seen that we would have analyzed the case by looking at different theories within the business theory. By doing so, we were able to see how joint optimization would have helped the Vega Food Company, as well as the resource-based theory that highlighted although there were conflicts within the family, the business did in fact benefit from the resources that were available, from their core values that were there, the foundation that helped them to move forward, giving them a competitive advantage, whereby their profit margins would have increased, etc. And lastly, we looked at the systems theory that was able to highlight that although Francisco Jr. did operate the company in a management-based operation, it did not prevent the company from having an overlap of conflict and miscommunication from occurring. Recommendations based on the family business theories discussed. We would look at two sections, one being the family relation and the other is the business relation. So recommendations for both aspects. Under the family relation, the recommendation that we give is one, for them to create a well-defined and structured family council. Secondly, create vision and mission, as well as an objective and a strategic plan. Thirdly, create and define family values, beliefs, principles, and culture, as it is your core values that each family member should be committed to. Fourthly, create a code of conduct, policies for regulating the relationship between the family as well as the business. Fifthly, create a well-defined policy, performance policy, retirement policy, dismissal policies, shareholder agreement, and compensation policies. So we move on to the business relation recommendation. We have professionalizing the family business, create stock ownership, create financial and administrative systems, because we saw where Francisco Jr. was the only means of actually getting financial reports on what's happening. So they need to actually create financial and administrative system. This is an imperative. It is imperative where you need to be transparent on your financials of the company to prove whether there is good leadership or gain or more trust and confidence within the family. which in turn enhance the harmonious relationship of the family and the sustainability of the company in the long run. So, to sum up our recommendation, our group is recommending that all alternatives about to have a good relationship among the family members that will make the company become more successful. Isabella, being the mother, should take a great part also in creating harmonious and united relationship among her children, since she has great influence on them. She can conduct family get-together or family events that will gather her children and make each of them spend more time with each other. Also, professionalizing the business by having a clear organizational structure, well-defined job roles and responsibilities, and a transparent financial report. Listed below are our references for the agency theory, resource-based theory, also our systems theory, and information that we would have gathered throughout the case, as well as some of our recommendations. On behalf of the group, we'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation. Have a blessed day.